This presentation, you will learn about symbolic anthropology. Edward Tyler, the 19th century pioneer in anthropology, referred to the power of using words as signs to express thoughts with which their sound does not directly connect them. He also regarded language or symbolic communication to be the highest grade of human faculty, the presence of which binds together all races of mankind in substantial mental unity. Symbols, objects, events, speech sounds, or written forms to which humans attribute meaning. The primary form of symbolizing by human beings is through language, but humans also communicate by using signs and symbols in art, dance, music, architecture, facial expressions, gestures, body postures, clothing, ritual, religion, kinship, nationality, space arrangements, and material possessions, among many other things. Human beings can attribute meaning to an event, action, or object which can evoke thought, idea, and emotion. The perception of the use of symbols as a significant human feature has become an important object of study in anthropology. Leslie White, in an article on humans as a symbolizing species, pointed to the importance of context in the meaning of symbols. Ernest Cassirer argues that without a complex of symbols, relational thought would be impossible. Humans have the capacity to isolate relations and consider them in their abstract meaning. Geometry, for example, conceptually deals with universal spatial relationships for which expression there is a symbolic language and a form of representation. Yet, this abstract system can be applied to building problems. Casprer expresses the symbolic nature of human experience as follows. No longer in a merely physical universe, man lives in a symbolic universe. Language, myth, art, and religion are parts of this universe. They are the varied threads which weave the symbolic net, the tangled web of human experience. All human progress in thought and experience refines upon and strengthens this net. As anthropologists began to develop a perspective of culture as a system of symbols, meanings, and values, various subdisciplines of anthropology with this orientation came into being. Two of these were semantic anthropology, the study of signs, and symbolic anthropology. It is worth recalling that anthropologists of very different theoretical stripes agreed that symbols mark the threshold of culture. For example, an arch materialist like Leslie White writes, the symbol is the universe of humanity. Yet, relatively few anthropologists were concerned with how symbols mean. Safir, for example, distinguished between primary symbols which directly mimic an object, the picture of a dog that means dog, and secondary symbols in which a connection is no longer directly traceable between words or combination of words and what they refer to, as in the sentence, the red, white, and blue stands for freedom. Nature of symbolic anthropology. Symbolic anthropology views human beings as the carriers and products, as subjects and objects of a system of signs and symbols which serve as a means of communication to import knowledge and messages. These provide the foundation for action and behavior, as well as ideas and values. The symbolic theory of culture is a model of human beings as a symbolizing species as compared with a materialist theory of culture based on humans as primary producing species. The symbolic definition of culture is part of a trend which sees culture as the science of meanings. Symbolic anthropologists study the system of codes and messages received by human beings through their interaction with other human beings and with the natural world. The entire universe is perfused with signs, says Charles Peirce, who laid the foundations for the discipline of semiotics. The fact that all creatures communicate with some form of sign and symbol, symbolic anthropology is engaged in research which is universal in scope. Most of the knowledge, thoughts, feelings, and perceptions of human beings is wrapped in language, a symbol system. Words convey meanings or name and classify objects and thoughts. As such, they are conceptual perceptions of the world couched in symbols. Word symbols, languages are appropriate to a society at a particular time and place. The word planet meant something different in the first century than it does in the 20th. Language and its development provide the foundation for the symbolic view of culture. Linguistics, the study of language, has given the symbolic anthropologists the techniques with which to unravel code which represent the complex motives, experiences, and knowledge which shape and express beliefs and actions. Thus, linguistics is the historical forerunner of symbolic anthropology. The philosophical ideas of Immanuel Kant provide an important base to the orientation of symbolic and semiotic anthropologists, as does the structuralism of Levi Strauss. Kant developed a general theory of symbolic forms. He argued that there were basic structures of thinking which were independent of the content of thought. Kant claimed that humans had no direct insight into the real world. It was only certain pure intellectual concepts, he believed, like those of possibility, existence, necessity, substance, cause, time, and place, that enable humans to have the descriptive tools to gain knowledge about the external world. As Kant put it, in knowing, it is not the mind that conforms to things, but things that conform to the mind. Human knowledge is wrapped in language, a symbol system. Words convey knowledge, and knowing is couched in words. Words, which become signs when written, are appropriate to particular societies at particular times and places. Symbolic systems represent knowledge developed by a community of persons with a historic tradition and a particular system of communication. Symbolic analysis can proceed on an individual or a societal level. The outside world and the subjective view of it are intertwined. Subject and object become one in the cognitive and symbolic view. Events, objects, and experiences are embedded in a set of meanings, enmeshed in a system of cultural symbols. Reality exists out there, but not as pure experience or as pure events. In the symbolic perspective, culture is the meaningful aspect of concrete or objective reality and the coming to be, the appropriation to consciousness of objective reality. According to Victor Turner, symbolic anthropologists are classified into two groups: the abstract systems group, which includes linguists, systems groups, which includes linguists, structuralists, and cognitive anthropologists. This group concentrates on formal analysis and is less concerned with content than with methods and logics. And the second one, the symbols and social dynamics group, which includes semiotics and symbolic anthropologists, sociolinguists, folklorists, and literary critics. This group tries to combine the formal analysis with content and perception, and meaning with social action. Victor Turner's views on symbolic anthropology. Turner points out that signs are deliberate constructs for precise communicative purposes and, as such, play an important role in social action, particularly in technical, political, and economic action. In technology, there is the CAD CAM computer system to drive machines. In politics, there are posters and pictures of leaders used to foster national support for leaders and their programs. In economics, there are indexes which signal the growth or decline of the economy and can stimulate or put a brake on actions in the marketplace. Wherever symbol systems are guides to action, they operate within a social context. This gives a symbol or a sign its specific meaning, which may vary from one social context to another. The word father has one meaning within a kinship structure and a different one within the context of the Catholic religious structure. Society is the result of the intersecting actions and behaviors of persons occupying different boundaries and social contexts. Signs and symbols are cues which set humans in motion. In the symbolic view, the combinations of signs, symbols, and context give meaning and interpretation to human actions and behavior. Turner's contribution and an example of his sophisticated common sense was to consider symbols within specific fields of social action. In analyzing Tembu ritual, Turner wrote, I found I could not analyze ritual symbols without studying them in a time series in relation to other events, for symbols are essentially involved in social processes. I came to see performances of ritual as distinct phases in social processes whereby groups become adjusted to internal changes and adapted to their external environment. From this standpoint, the ritual symbol becomes a factor in social action, a positive force in an activity field. The symbol becomes associated with human interests, purposes, ends, and means, whether these are explicitly formulated or have to be inferred from the observed behavior. The structure and properties of a symbol become those of a dynamic entity, at least within its appropriate context of action. Thus, the symbol of the American flag takes on different meanings if it is flapping on a flag post in a schoolyard, hanging in the back of a Chevrolet van, or draped across the casket of a slain soldier. The image is the same, but the meanings associated with it are different in kind and intensity. Turner considers cultural symbols, including ritual symbols, as originating in and sustaining processes involving temporal changes in social relations and not in timeless entities. Symbols have some basic properties in common. They are powerful condensations of meaning. Many things and actions are represented in a single formation. For example, Turner analyzes the meanings associated with the Shishinga, a Dembu hunting shrine consisting of only a forked stick placed in the ground, a piece of earth from a termite hill trimmed into a rectangle and placed at the base of the branch, and a braid of grass. The associated meanings include social relationships between hunters and non hunters, the hunter's immediate family and matrikin, toughness of mind and body, piety towards the hunter's ancestors, fertility, skill in the use of weapons, and fairness in the distribution of meat, some 15 different meanings directly associated with this shrine. This is but a single example of the mighty synthesizing and focusing capacity of ritual symbolism. Turner observes, it might almost be said that the greater symbol, the simpler its form. A moment's reflection on the evocative nature of the Christian cross, simply two perpendicular pieces of wood of unequal length, suggests the truth of Turner's observation. Therefore, symbols are multivocal, susceptible of many meanings, though their meanings tend to cluster around two extremes of a continuum. At one end, there is often a cluster of meanings around physiological and natural phenomena, and at the other, another cluster of meanings about social relationships. For example, the red in the American flag is sometimes explained as representing the blood of those who have died in defense of freedom, the stripes as the original 13 colonies, and the entire symbol as evoking values of patriotism and respect. But the important point is that symbols, condensed and multivocal, may speak to different people in different ways. The construction and reconstruction of meaning occurs with specific dynamic contexts of social process. This has profound theoretical implications. If, as so many anthropologists have argued, symbols are the key to cultural life, and if, as Turner suggests, symbols are dynamic social creations with the potential for contradictory but coexisting interpretations, then how can a cultural trait or a social structure be abstracted from its dynamic context? Why should one believe that cultural patterns serve to create social stability or meet discernible human needs when the very nature of cultural life is fluid, contradictory, and dynamic as opposed to stable, congruent, and static? Turner's insights into symbols touch a central nerve in 20th century anthropological thought. Culture exists as experience. It only occurs insofar as it is practiced. This leads to an anthropology of performance and a concern with praxis, literary action or practice, as in the performance of an art or skill, rather than an anthropology of social structure. A case study in symbolic anthropology. Mary Douglas, professor of anthropology at University College London, writes on social and religious symbolism of the Lele. Like many other primitive peoples, the Lele have no systematic theology, nor even any whole systematized body of doctrines through which their religion can be studied. There exists a bewildering variety of prohibitions falling on certain people all the time. However, we need to appreciate their idea of propriety, their ideals of womanhood and manhood, and of personal cleanliness in order to interpret their rites. The Lele grow maize, hunt, weave raffia, and draw palm wine. Of all their activities, hunting is the highest in their own esteem. It is not surprising that the richest vein of symbolism is derived from reflections on the animal world, on its relation to the human sphere, and on the relations between different breeds of birds and beasts. They are hunters, and yet they feel certain sympathy with other living inhabitants of their land. The idea of these basic distinctions, the opposition between mankind and animal kind, is expressed by the Lele by relating it to one dominant value, the virtue of buhoni, which means shame, shyness, or modesty. The most shameless animal, according to them, is the dog who shares his master's domestic life but never acquires the human virtue of Buhonye. Buhonye is the sense of propriety. It is nothing less than the reaction of the nicely cultivated person to any improper behavior. It provides the standard for all social relations. Infants are not expected to feel it, but the informal training of childhood is directed to awakening a lively sense of Buhonye. If a whole moral code can be summed up in one word, such as honor or charity, for the Lele it would be Buhonye. Symbolic anthropologists can thus understand and interpret the intricacies of people's behavior only by sharing their language or symbol system, which conveys specific meanings and influence the process of social interaction and interpersonal relations. Thank you for watching the presentation. Do like, subscribe, share, and leave your comments about this presentation or any other topics you would like to learn more about.